our fear of unknown aquatic depths. But by the 20th century, it seemed that humans had discovered everything there was to discover beneath the waves, that the age of exploration and science had slain our deep water dragons. But every now and then, the seas spit forth something unexpected. Something like the coelacanth, a fish that was supposed to have been extinct for 65 million years. Or the bizarre megamouth shark that confounded marine biologists in 1976. The discovery of these real sea monsters also sparked a renewed interest in the legends of lake monsters. The most famous of these legends started in a beautiful lake in the Scottish Highlands. The first modern sighting of the Loch Ness Monster was recorded in 1930. But it was in the spring of 1933 that the legend of Nessie really took off.
When did you see it and where?
Right here at the southwest end of Loch Ness.
What was it like?
Oh, very like a swan, long neck, small head, and one big hump about 30 feet long.
Just had one big hump and a head something like a dog.
What was it like?
Like an elephant's back or an upturned boat.
Over the summer, in one encounter after another, people described seeing the same creature in Loch Ness, an enormous, prehistoric-looking animal with a long neck and a snake-like head.
Many people see this as nonsense.
It's not rubbish. I saw it and I believe in it now.
Nessie sparked a media frenzy and a lot of photographs, including this iconic picture that we'll look at in more depth later. Since Nessie's spectacular debut, lake monsters have been spotted around the world. There is Champ in Lake Champlain in the United States, Ogopogo in Canada's Lake Okanagan, Morgar off the coast of England, and the Lake Sturgeon monster in Sweden, who has recently been put on the endangered species list. And on the Pacific coast of North America, there have been hundreds of sightings.
It does not lead automatically to the idea that if enough people tell the story, therefore it must be true. They function, in essence, outside of science as we understand it. They function in the realm of myth or fable or fantasy.
As a scientist, I can't believe my fellow scientific vertebrate people are not doing anything about this very challenging scientific problem.
One thing that lake and sea monsters have in their favor is a long history of sober, sane, and unshakable witnesses. John Kirk, an employee of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, has seen the alleged monster in British Columbia's Lake Okanagan several times.
And I witnessed, first of all, a very large, what appeared to be reptilian head swimming in the middle of Okanagan Lake. And immediately behind it was a very long neck, and then ultimately a succession of about 4 or 5 humps.
Tyler Ennis, a trained biologist and the son of a commercial fisherman, saw something similar off the coast of British Columbia.
The body looked like it was just consistently rolling through the water. There was about 6, 7 humps. The humps were out of the water by at least 3 or 4 feet. The thickness of the body was at least a foot or so thick. I watched it for about 20 seconds or so, give or take, and then it went underneath the water.
Bob Iverson grew up on the sea and spent his summers helping his father fish these waters.
And all of a sudden, these 3 great big humps come out of the water, and they look like big truck tires. And they're gone. And then they're back. 3 again, and they're gone. I'd never seen anything like that.
And then there is the series of terrifying encounters in San Francisco Bay, witnessed by twins Bill and Bob Clark.
It actually came towards us and growled at us. I was going to get out of the car, but because Bill screamed at me not to go out, I realized that, well, it isn't worth getting killed. I was afraid if he went to the edge of the water that it would grab him. You're looking at it in your mind because your mind doesn't think sea serpent.
We'll take a closer look at these sightings later, but first we return to the mother of all lake monsters, Nessie. 70 years after the Nessie craze began, there are still sightings at the loch.
I suppose the standard answer to most people is that if you want to see the Loch Ness Monster, you spend 3 hours in the pub and you drink 1 or 2 good local Scotch malt whiskies. But I hadn't been drinking, definitely something alive.
I saw the classic 3 humps. I never thought that I would. This was 3 distinct humps, and the thing was that I watched it for 15 minutes, and it was swimming against the current, slowly, but it was moving against the current.
The first recorded sighting of the Loch Ness Monster occurred in the 6th century, when an Irish monk was said to have chastised the vicious creature as it surfaced and ordered it back into the depths. But it wasn't until the string of sightings in the 1930s that Nessie hunting began in earnest. The London tabloids were desperate for a photograph. A local man named Hugh Gray got the first picture and instantly created a sensation in the world's press. Is this a picture of a lake monster? We'll take a closer look later on. Monster enthusiasts began to flock to Loch Ness, including a London surgeon named R. Kenneth Wilson, who in 1934 captured this image. The classic photograph of Nessie. This iconic image was immediately dubbed the surgeon's photo, and it was obviously authentic because a doctor had taken it. The photograph fueled speculation that Nessie was a holdover from the age of the dinosaurs, called a plesiosaur, an aquatic reptile that was supposed to have been wiped out 65 million years ago. Is it possible that the deep, sheltered refuge of Loch Ness could have kept a relic plesiosaur population alive?
Here we go, guys. Come on, get with it. You feel what I'm saying? All right. Ain't nothing but a party. Just bring yourself right on in. Here we go.
Cu noul card de credit Feel & Go Credit ești liber chiar și să te joci, pentru că ai un card de credit special pentru conducătorii auto și în plus reduceri în stațiile Rompetrol, Hey și la partenerii de discount. Feel & Go Credit pentru cei care iubesc să conducă. Ofertă specială pentru primii 3000 de clienți. Grăbește-te să-ți iei cardul Feel & Go Credit.
Lipsite de griji, aventuroase sau dificile, începuturile sunt cele mai importante. Pedigree Junior îi ajută să crească sănătoși și puternici încă de la început, datorită formulei cu 30% proteină și extra calciu, pentru un start bun în viață. Câtă vreme ai putere de muncă, acumulezi. Iar mai târziu, când te retragi, nicio problemă. Ai o rentă privată plus profit. Descoperă pensia AIG Life.
AIG Life, a member of American International Group.
Descoperă blondul strălucitor care se simte fantastic. Noul șampon Nivea Brilliant Blond cu extract de germen de grâu și esențe de floarea soarelui. Protejează și intensifică reflexele aurii ale părului tău. Pentru un blond strălucitor care se simte la fel de bine precum arată. Noul șampon Nivea Brilliant Blond. Părul frumos se simte bine ca niciodată. Câștigă săptămânal o vacanță în 2 în insulele Canare cu Nivea. Simte frumusețea în culorile verii.
În lumea Heidi, ciocolatierii noștri creează cu pasiune și migală rețete din ce în ce mai speciale. Noua gamă Heidi Creamy îmbină cu pricepere, dăruire și artă ciocolată cu creme bogate și foarte fine pentru a oferi și mai multă bucurie celor din jur. pur șocolat.
Descoperă noua Românie liberă. De acum o poți citi mai ușor, pentru că are o prezentare grafică modernă cu articole mai bine delimitate, iar mica publicitate e într-un ghid separat mai la îndemână. Noua Românie liberă, zi de zi de folos.
Rewards for Nessie's capture inspired monster lovers to new heights of inventiveness. In 1934, for example, this optimistic team built a 35-ton steel cage to hold the beast. The legend of Nessie reached its peak in the 1960s and 70s, and even scientists were drawn into the hunt. In 1970 came the American invasion, led by Dr. Robert Rhines and a team of scientists from the Academy of Applied Science. Using new side-scan sonar technology, they reported readings which indicated underwater life forms 10 to 50 times bigger than any known fish in the loch. Rhines would also release these contentious computer-enhanced photos taken underwater with motion control cameras, including the famous flipper shot and gargoyle head, all of them intriguingly plesiosaur-like. Even National Geographic got into the act, sending an all-star team led by oceanographer Bob Ballard, who would later discover the Titanic, and renowned underwater photographers Emery Christoph and David Dubélé. They had a high-tech research ship and used sonar-triggered underwater cameras, banks of strobe lights and underwater amplifiers, which could broadcast the sound of fish in distress. The team got some great shots of shoes, wine bottles and kettles. Although they did put one Nessie mystery to rest, a suspected skeleton turned out to be a log. But despite these scientific setbacks, believers still clung to the so-called surgeon's photo of Nessie in profile. Then came the confession that shocked the lake monster world. For 60 years, the surgeon's photo of the Loch Ness Monster had stood the test of time. Then, in 1992, a man named Christian Sperling made a shocking revelation. The photograph was the brainchild of his stepfather, Duke Weatherall, a flamboyant big game hunter sent to Loch Ness by the Daily Mail to capture Nessie on film. According to the stepson, when Duke failed in his task, the paper fired him, and he decided to get his revenge. He procured a toy submarine, then fashioned a Nessie-shaped head and neck to fit snugly over the conning tower. When his Nessie was seaworthy, he and his younger son, Ian Weatherall, launched their monster in the shallows of Loch Ness.
The water cold? A little further. Right, like that. That's perfect. Just like that, son.
Weatherall took a photograph.
I think we got it.
And the rest is history.
Let's go.
The seemingly majestic head and neck were all of 30 centimeters high. Weatherall convinced London surgeon Dr. Kenneth Wilson to claim the photograph as his own. Perhaps Wilson was simply too overwhelmed by the publicity it generated to ever reveal the truth. Is the first photograph taken by Hugh Gray any more authentic? If we increase the contrast, the picture begins to look suspiciously like the head of a retriever dog, swimming with a stick in its mouth.
You look at the photographs without the framework that says, this is my version of the Loch Ness Monster, you would never see these things as monster photographs. You'd see them as bad pictures out of focus of anything, but not a giant reptile.
In scientific terms, Nessie's long reign as the original lake monster is beginning to work against her. After 75 years of looking, why hasn't she been found? Sonar studies of the lake haven't revealed anything unusual in more than 5 years, and some of the most devoted Nessie fans now think that she may have died, the last of her kind, and her species is now extinct. But even if Nessie has gone to her final resting place somewhere on the floor of this spectacular loch, legends of lake monsters are very much alive. Take, for example, Lake Okanagan in British Columbia. Nessie has only been seen a dozen or so times and a handful of photographs taken. But the monster in this lake has been sighted by hundreds of people and even captured on videotape. Larger and deeper than Loch Ness, Okanagan is a perfect monster's lair. John Kirk works for Canada's Royal Mounted Police, and he's the author of In the Domain of Lake Monsters. He's collected hundreds of reported sightings. But he's certain that the creature in Lake Okanagan exists because he's seen it with his own eyes. The monster is known as Ogopogo.
Approximately 17 years ago, I had the most incredible experience I've ever had in my life, where I beheld for the first time an animal that wasn't catalogued by science.
And in August 1989, it happened again. This time, Kirk saw two creatures, less than 200 meters from shore. He described being able to see through the arches of their serpentine bodies as they moved across the lake.
I believe I saw on that occasion and subsequent occasions an unknown animal that dwells in this lake that is yet to be classified by science.
One scientist has tried to classify what eyewitnesses like John Kirk are seeing. Marine biologist Ed Bousfield.
If you see a large marine animal at the surface with two or more humps in tandem, one behind the other, there's nothing else it can be. It's Cadborosaurus.
Cadborosaurus wilsey is a creature compiled by Bousfield from hundreds of eyewitness descriptions. A reptile growing more than 20 meters long with a horse-like head, snake-like body and front flippers that can breathe underwater and move at speeds of up to 75 kilometers per hour. Most scientists think it's a fantasy, but Dr. Bousfield believes this is a real sea serpent that became a lake monster by accident.
They originated in the sea and migrated up the rivers, following the salmonoid fishes on which they prey. 70 years ago, there was a great period of dam building on the Columbia River. They are now landlocked in these lakes, like Lake Okanagan.
John Kirk agrees that it's possible this is the creature people are seeing in Okanagan. He's tracked hundreds of sightings over the years of a reptilian serpent-like creature ranging from 10 to 30 meters in length and swimming at phenomenal speeds.
Yeah, there it is over there.
But now the crack team of skeptical investigators, Ben Radford and Joe Nickel, are hot on Ogopogo's trail. Flying over the Okanagan Valley, they notice that the lake is serpentine in shape, and as we'll see later, this may not be a coincidence.
There are lots and lots of stories, and it's a big and beautiful and deep lake, larger, I think, than Loch Ness.
In the case of Ogopogo, one thing that's interesting about it is the variety of video evidence, unlike many of the other lake monsters. There are a handful of videos of Ogopogo which I think are worthy of merit.
Radford is the managing editor of the Skeptical Inquirer magazine. He and Nickel, a veteran investigator, are working on their latest book, a critical look at the evidence for lake monsters around the world. They've come to Okanagan to get to the bottom of the myth.
Well, we got a gorgeous day, though.
Radford and Nickel join Kirk on our Ogopogo research boat. The combination of skeptics and advocate makes for some lively debate over the evidence.
If you were proved wrong at the end of the day, what would prove you wrong? What would prove to you that Ogopogo does not exist?
You'd have to drain the blooming lake, and we'd have to see there was nothing there.
Well, but the difficulty we skeptics have.
While a handful of Ogopogo researchers like Kirk claim to have had repeated sightings, veteran boat captain Glenn Kohali has spent years out on the water without ever seeing the beast.
I haven't personally seen anything. Occasionally I'll see a phantom wave. The lake could be totally calm, nothing moving, and all of a sudden you'll get this wave going across the lake without any real reason for it. There's no boat traffic, and for sure, if you just take a glance at that, it looks just like Ogopogo, just like it.
This phantom wave, called a seiche, is common to narrow, deep lakes like Loch Ness and Okanagan, the same lakes that are reputedly homes to monsters. So is this footage, shot by John Kirk, proof of a lake serpent in Okanagan, or just a serpentine rogue wave? Approaching Rattlesnake Island, the valley narrows over a seismic fault line. Here, the lake plunges almost 240 meters in depth. According to Native American legend, this is the home of a ferocious man-eating lake monster.
The First Nations people rarely traverse the lake without bringing some kind of small animal with them which they could throw into the lake to appease the lake demon. If you failed to do this, you incurred its wrath.
Fortunately for the diving team, Ogopogo hasn't attacked a human in recent memory.
Bigger stuff tends to usually hang out on deep walls where it's got the room. So that's why we've picked this spot, Squally, to dive, because it's got that kind of depth.
If Ogopogo does exist, there must be dozens of them in the lake in order to maintain a breeding population. But even in a lake this size, the chances of encountering one are fantastically slim. Dive leader DJ Swanstrom has picked the waters around Rattlesnake Island to improve his chances.
And I mean, this is a deep lake. Does it have the potential to have big stuff? Oh yeah, I mean, if it's going to be big, it's going to be in a lake like Okanagan.
If Ed Bousfield is right, they're not looking for a plesiosaur, long considered the most likely candidate to be a lake monster. Instead, they can expect his Cadborosaurus, a much more serpentine creature with a pair of front flippers and a fan-like tail. The divers won't descend much more than 30 meters. Beyond that, it gets too dangerous and too dark. But that leaves a lot of room for Ogopogo to hide in. With air running low, the divers return to the surface. Their search has been fruitless.
It's just like Okanagan. It's tough diving, not much to see, not a lot of life down there.
I give you the new restyle Renault Megane with a fresh new design at the front. And
Say that body.
no, forget the rear. It has a new smoother 2-liter diesel engine. Look at the new soft touch interior.
Pentru seriile limitate Megane ai un avantaj de până la 2300 de euro.
Mi-am picat oferta cu 56 de SMS-uri după ora 16 în primele 6 luni, pe care jumătate le poți împărți cu un prieten dacă te abonezi pe timp de 8 ani.
Cu Zap Talk Free e simplu. Vorbești 1000 de minute gratuite pe lună în rețea oricând și, în plus, ai tarife incredibil de mici cu alte rețele. Zap Talk Free. Mai simplu, mai ieftin.
Stimați spectatori, Tantum Verde luptă împotriva gâtului roșu. Calmează durerea. Înlătură bacteriile și, datorită efectului antiinflamator al benzinaminei, tratează inflamația. Bravo! Tantum Verde tratează gâtul roșu prin triplă acțiune, rapid și eficient. Când ai gâtul roșu, cu Tantum Verde trece. Acum și Tantum Lemon cu gust de lămâie. Tantum Verde conține benzinamină și se poate elibera fără prescripție medicală. Se recomandă citirea cu atenție a prospectului. Dacă apar manifestări neplăcute, adresați-vă medicului sau farmacistului.
Finanț Bank. Steaua ce strălucește de 20 de ani în universul bancar. Steaua ce radiază încredere, inovație și experiență. Este acum o nouă valoare, cu un nou nume. Credit Europe Bank. Timpul creează valoarea.
În fiecare zi, de 30 de ani, la Salonta facem mezeluri. Zi de zi alegem carnea, afumăm mezelurile cu fum din lemn fără rășini, le supraveghem 75 de zile viteza de uscare și temperatura, le însemânțăm cu mucegai nobil și apoi le curățăm. Zi de zi. Salonta. 30 de ani de experiență în mezeluri.
Când cresc, au nevoie de tot ce e mai bun. Oferă-le Rama. Făcută din semințe de floarea soarelui, Rama conține nutrienți esențiali de care tu și familia ta aveți nevoie zilnic. Rama. Pentru un bun început.
Te trezești mai ușor dacă te gândești la ceva savuros.
dar la un premiu. Trimite prin SMS codul de pe cutia de musli Vitalis și poți câștiga o cameră foto sau una video sau marele premiu, o vacanță în Tenerife. Vitalis, atât de gustos, atât de hrănitor.
The dive team has failed to find a monster, but maybe sonar, which can go deeper than humans, will provide more answers. Sonar operator Daryl Van Dura scans the underwater rift with sound waves.
Keep coming up on it.
The images on the screen are formed by those sound waves echoing back off solid objects in the water.
Into the wind, sonar's a little tricky to work with. It's not photographic imagery, it's computer imagery, so unless it's something that you can obviously tell, like it's a ship or an airplane or something, you would have to go back and verify that hit. And with a living creature, it's not likely to be there again when you go back with cameras or divers.
A few years ago, an Ogopogo expedition recorded this image, which shows what appears to be a 13-meter serpentine shape close to the lake bottom. Some claim this must be a biological entity. But Van Dura has another theory. He often uses his sonar equipment to salvage sunken trees and thinks the alleged Ogopogo image looks rather familiar.
It could be a tree trunk of a gnarly crooked tree, which we have a lot of in this country. That would be the first thing that would come to my mind.
The evidence for lake monsters is subjective at best, and what one person sees as a monster, another might see as a tree or wave or really big fish. But Ogopogo has also been caught on videotape.
What is that?
What makes Ogopogo different from other lake monsters is that it has been captured on film and video, and not just once or twice, but several times. Arlene Gall has taken on the task of sifting through all this evidence.
Individuals who have seen the creature and have had an experience, they become believers for life. They'll continue to call me.
Her house doubles as a makeshift museum, and as Ben and Joe peruse her archive, they find a treasure trove of fuzzy photos, old film, and home videos.
Claim they are seeing.
For such an elusive creature, Ogopogo is remarkably camera-friendly. There are dozens of pictures and videos claiming to show the creature, and not all of them are easily dismissed. Arlene shows us the three most celebrated examples.
The creature that people are reporting as being Ogopogo.
In the summer of 1980, as Larry Thal was filming his family on a lakeside holiday at Okanagan, an excited crowd began to gather on the beach, pointing to a disturbance about 100 meters out in the water.
I have no idea the size of this creature, but it's extremely large, extremely long. And as we have no whales or submarines in Okanagan Lake, I don't have any other explanation other than what people have been seeing out there.
One thing that intrigued me most about this film is that you do have the bow wave, you know, the crest is coming off of it. It seems to me that it's obviously some sort of living animal.
The alleged monster was reportedly visible for 45 minutes, but Thal took only this 10 seconds of footage.
He decided that he was only going to take a small portion because he wanted to save the rest of the film for his family, and of course this really upset me.
Arlene also shows us the Damara video shot in 1992. This portion of the video shows what appears to be a serpentine creature moving across the lake.
Look at it, the way it swims. I get very excited every time I see this because I've been waiting for years to have some type of visual.
Why could that not be three smaller creatures?
The way it's moving, it seems to be thrusting itself through the water. I'm just watching the way it swims. That's the reason why I believe it's one animal.
In another sequence, we see what looks like multiple heads swimming in the water. Suddenly, a ski boat enters the frame on a collision course with the lake serpents. The boat makes an evasive turn and the skier goes down.
You see it actually in interaction with people, with humans, which is something that you rarely get. So I think it's certainly valuable in terms of that.
And finally, there's the classic film shot by Art Folden in August 1968. These were the first moving images taken of the alleged lake serpent, and they caused quite a stir.
I'm not sure what speed it would be traveling at, but it's going pretty fast as far as I'm concerned.
The Folden film attracted us not because it's good quality. It isn't.
It's pushing water.
We've looked at it repeatedly because so much has been made of it. It's supposed to be some sort of, for some people, almost a holy grail.
Cryptozoologists estimate that the creature in the film is about 275 meters away and 20 meters long. Their conclusion is that it's simply too big and moving too fast to be a known animal.
He was looking along here. This guardrail would not have been here.
Ben and Joe know from experience that these monster-like estimates are often inflated, so they set out to retrace Folden's steps. They want to try to get a more accurate picture of the distance, size and speed of the so-called monster in Folden's film.
These trees are irrelevant, largely.
The first task for Ben and Joe is to find the vantage point from which Folden shot the film.
Way back, this could be comparable. Yeah.
Using a still image from the film, and with the help of lake monster researcher John Kirk, the team agrees on a likely spot. They take a bead on the far side of the lake for reference.
All right, so the idea is that we're going to have surveyors up at the highway site, also down at the shore and on a boat there. And we take GPS coordinates of each place, and then we get the distances measured at different intervals, 20, 50, 75, 100, and 300 yards. Questions, comments? No.
The 10-meter research boat is placed out in the water for scale.
6 meters. Ready for a 6-meter shot now?
And a survey team with laser equipment sizes up the boat at regular distances from the shoreline.
That's pretty good right there. Okay, we're going to take a picture now. Okay.
When the boat is placed at a distance of 275 meters, the original estimate, it's immediately clear to the investigative team that the mysterious object in the water wasn't nearly that far out. Their new estimate is that the creature was more like 25 meters from the shore, and therefore had to be much smaller and swimming at a considerably slower speed. Kirk, Radford and Nickel all agree. The monster wasn't nearly as monstrous as cryptozoologists originally thought. Their science, however, is less than exact and leaves room for interpretation.
It hasn't dissuaded me that there's an unusual creature in there, but what it has done today is to shrunk the size from the initial estimate way smaller than the 60 and the 70 feet that they were positing back in 1970, and I would say that was smaller by half, at least. So 30 to 40 feet maximum.
You could almost say it's an incredible shrinking lake monster.
But I still see it as being significantly larger than any unknown fauna in this lake, significantly.
But how much of that dark streak is the monster or the creature, and how much is its wake?
Joe and Ben's expedition hasn't changed any minds, but then again, they didn't expect it to.
You have to sort of ask yourself, why do these things thrive in the absence of hard evidence? You know, it's not like there's been any bodies found. So why do people keep it? And part of the reason people keep it is because they like the idea. People want lake monsters.
Lake monsters really function almost like giant rubber ducks. They're unsinkable. You push them down and let go of them and they bob back to the surface.
The size of John Kirk's monster may have diminished, but not his faith.
I'm a witness to this myself. I have seen the phenomenon, and I know what I saw quite clearly. I'm not deluded in any way, shape, or form by what I saw. It's so easy for people who have never had a sighting or who use the same old hackneyed saw every single time. Eyewitness evidence is unreliable, in which case we should disband our entire judicial system and free all the prisoners from jail.
Before closing the file on Ogopogo, there is one more avenue of investigation to pursue: forensic video analysis. We brought in Grant Fredericks, a forensic video consultant to the FBI, to see if he could shed any light on the video evidence for Ogopogo.
When we look at videotape, we often see that the videotape shows us something different than a witness has stated. And it's not that they're being insincere, it's just that they may have their own personal biases. The camera doesn't have a bias.
First, he analyzes the film shot by Art Folden in 1968 on grainy 8mm film.
I thought this was very interesting. I was actually kind of compelled on this, but there's clearly something causing something happening in the water.
Fredericks focuses on a sequence perceived to be a bow wake followed by a dark object, the alleged lake monster moving through the water.
We can see that there's a light object in front of this darker object. This object is quite reflective, very, very consistent with the side of a silver fish.
Fredericks has done a lot of fishing in this region, and he knows firsthand that a big, bright fish, followed by a long, dark wake, can give the wrong impression.
I think if one were looking for a monster and saw this, that monster would be in that person's mind's eye. It's not on the film.
He then turns to the more recent Damaro video, shot in 1992. This video even had the skeptics scratching their heads.
There appears to be pretty aggressive tidal movement sort of in this area. This is very consistent with debris from a fallen tree in the water, because the objects, they very slowly sort of bob up and bob down.
Grant points out that the objects don't react to the boat, and the water skier doesn't react to the objects.
I don't think that I would be that calm if I'd fallen among a group of monsters now.
Finally, he looks at the Thor film.
I don't think this one's a problem in explaining it. You know, this has all the characteristics of waves moving. I don't see anything that would tell me that this is something out of the ordinary.
As scientists often point out, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And as yet, Ogopogo falls a long way short of absolute proof. But even if Ogopogo and its many cousins around the world don't exist, we still haven't ruled out the possibility of another kind of monster of the deep. The sea monster. An elusive animal could easily hide in our vast oceans, away from the prying eyes of science. And in fact, mysterious things do wash up on coastlines fairly frequently, like this giant mass of gelatinous flesh, found on the shores of Chile in 2003. These findings inevitably fuel the hopes that a sea monster, such as the legendary giant octopus, has been found. As with most suspected sea monsters, a piece of the Chilean flesh eventually made its way into the laboratory of Dr. Skip Pierce at the University of South Florida.
We've had blobs really shipped to us from all over the world, usually in Ziploc bags, preserved in all sorts of things, from rum to formaldehyde. They usually smell bad.
Dr. Pierce is a molecular biologist who has tested samples dating back to the late 1800s, including the St. Augustine monster and the infamous Tasmanian specimen.
By launch, land and in the air, we search for a sea monster. This is the Pymon River on the rugged and only partly explored west coast of Tasmania.
The Tasmanian monster, which washed in the 1960s, that was on the beach for 2 years.
Bringing back specimens was quite a job. The toughened hide of the monster would only yield to the axe. And when cut, the flesh gave off a pungent odor, similar to ammonia or an overripe cheese.
It turns out that many of these samples, including the Tasmanian monster, bear marked similarities to the recent Chilean finding. Pierce dissolves a sample of the Chilean monster in hydrochloric acid to find out what type of protein it's made of, and the microscope confirms the usual suspect, whale blubber.
You can see it clearly. It matches exactly the pattern of fibers in humpback whale blubber. It takes a long time for a whale to rot completely, and if the whale floats around long enough, everything rots away except for this protein, and this protein is almost undegradable.
So far, Dr. Pierce has never seen evidence of a monster.
They've all been identified. Any sea monster where there's been an existing piece that has gotten into a laboratory has been identified. And so far, it hasn't turned out to be anything unknown, I regret to say. The lesson is everybody likes a sea monster.
One of the most beloved and most visible of sea monsters takes its name from the waters of Cadborough Bay near Vancouver. Based on hundreds of sightings, Cadborosaurus wilsey was introduced in a publication by marine biologist Ed Bousfield and oceanographer Paul LeBlond. It's commonly known as Caddy.
There's been lots of sightings of Caddy around Victoria and all along this coast and in the Gulf Islands and in Saanich Inlet. There's been hundreds of observations of Caddy over the last 100 years or so. So this is Caddy's playground. It's been seen in other places along the coast as well, both to the north and to the south.
Not only has Caddy been sighted, but some people think a specimen was actually found in 1937 at a whaling station in Naden Harbour. When whale butchers sliced open the belly of a whale, they apparently discovered this carcass, one unlike any they had ever seen before. LeBlond and Bousfield think it fits the description of Cadborosaurus perfectly. The same reptilian-shaped head, serpentine body, front flippers, and a fan-shaped tail.
We think that it might be a specimen of Caddy. Nobody has come up and said to us, "You dumbwits, this is a such and such." No. So it remains a mystery creature.
Unfortunately, the specimen disappeared, but LeBlond and Bousfield feel certain that the creature exists. According to them, it's basically a giant sea snake, up to 30 meters in length, but with a pair of front flippers and the ability to breathe underwater.
It's got some kind of a aquatic respiratory mechanism, perhaps millions of little respiratory hairs on its undersurface, in which gaseous exchange takes place at the water surface.
This is where mainstream marine biologists agree to disagree.
There is no precedent for a water-breathing reptile. You're getting into some technicalities of reptile life, all of which mitigate against the monsters being reptiles, because they have to do reptile things. Number one on the reptile hit parade is breathe air.
The overwhelming mass of evidence, hard and documentary evidence, from hundreds of people over 3,000 miles of coastline and more than 2 centuries of time, indicates that there is no possibility that this is fraudulent.
Fiction or fact, sea serpent sightings have begun to occur further south. And now, the San Francisco Bay Area in California may be witnessing the birth of a new monster legend, a mega serpent known as Franny.
Când ai pe cineva nou în viața ta, te bucuri de fiecare clipă împreună. Îi oferi căldură și dragoste de mamă. Bogat în lapte, Whiskas Junior asigură necesarul de vitamine, proteine și calciu pentru puiuțul tău. Whiskas Junior și dragostea ta îl vor face atât de fericit, încât vei toarce chiar și tu. Bucură-te de pisica ta!
Descoperă blondul strălucitor care se simte fantastic. Noul șampon Nivea Brilliant Blond cu extract de germen de grâu și esențe de floare soarelui. Protejează și intensifică reflexele aurii ale părului tău. Pentru un blond strălucitor care se simte la fel de bine precum arată. Noul șampon Nivea Brilliant Blond. Părul frumos se simte bine ca niciodată. Câștigă săptămânal o vacanță în doi în insulele Canare cu Nivea. Simte frumusețea în culorile verii.
Afacerea mergea bine, dar vroiam să-mi îndeplinească și mie cineva 3 dorințe. Mi-am dat seama că poate nu vorbeam cu cine trebuie. Am sunat la Banca Transilvania, a venit un domn foarte serios și mi-a spus că pot primi un credit pentru proprietăți imobiliare pe firmă de până la 200.000 de euro pe o perioadă de până la 15 ani și fără avans.
Ăsta a dat puștișor de aur.
Banca Transilvania îndeplinește dorințele micilor întreprinzători.
În lumea Heidi, ciocolatierii noștri creează cu pasiune și migală rețete din ce în ce mai speciale. Noua gamă Heidi Creamy îmbină cu pricepere, dăruire și artă ciocolată cu creme bogate și foarte fine pentru a oferi și mai multă bucurie celor din jur. passion pour chocolat.
100% sexy, 100% strălucitoare, 100% color.
Nou Garnier 100% color cu pigmenți puri extrem de rezistenți. Culoare intensă, strălucire maximă, incredibil de expresivă.
O culoare atât de intensă încât nu se stinge.
Garnier 100% color.
100% eu.
Ai grijă de tine.
Garnier.
Uneori familia mea zice că e o trupă de circ. Fiecare își face numărul, dar asta îmi și place la ei. Și oricum, ca dresor am soluția perfectă pentru a-mi îmblânzi năzdrăvanii. Tofifi, pentru că asta le place tuturor.
Alună crocantă învelită în caramel, cremă delicioasă de nuga și ciocolată fină.
Asta mi-e trupa.
E multă plăcere în Tofifi.
In 1983, not one but 5 people witnessed an astonishing event. They were part of a road construction crew working on a scenic stretch of the Pacific Coast Highway just north of San Francisco when their flagman radioed in an alarming call.
Hey, Marlene, you need to check something out. There's something really big coming your way.
Something unusually large and fast was making a monster-sized wake out in the water. Marlene Martin, the supervisor, took the call and went to look.
I started seeing this wake, but it didn't seem like anything was pulling it. And all of a sudden it came up, and it just started splashing all over. And it seemed like it had about 3.5 humps. I never saw the end of it. I never saw the tail. The head was very difficult to describe, very ferocious looking. It wasn't a friendly-looking creature.
But when it comes to sea serpent sightings, nothing rivals the life-changing experience of twins Bill and Bob Clark, who claim to have looked the terrifying monster in the eye. The Clark twins had their first close encounter with the magnificent beast on a winter morning in 1985, as they were taking in the view of the Golden Gate Bridge.
The Clark brothers in San Francisco Bay have been studying this animal for the past 20 years. I am convinced that their 20-year study of this species is one of the most credible of all studies that have been carried, including our own.
According to Bill and Bob Clark, their first run-in with the mega serpent took them completely by surprise.
We would come down here early in the morning before we went to work and have a cup of coffee, a donut, and then relax and look at the beautiful view in San Francisco Bay.
As they watched, they noticed a group of sea lions. Then suddenly, they realized that something was in hot pursuit. A creature they could only describe as a great sea serpent rose up out of the water.
Felt like I was looking at a dinosaur. I felt like I was a million years in the past watching this creature come through the water. You could see his head. And its head was sticking up like this, and it had these 4 coils directly behind its head. And as it was there, I could see it turning around, looking around, obviously looking for the sea lion. They were just sitting there frolicking. They didn't even know. They weren't even, yeah. And then when it got right there, within a few feet, that's when it telescoped up. That's what's really shocked me, because I thought it was another sea lion. In an instant, this thing stuck its neck straight up. I mean, like a telephone pole. It was like boom, and then down into the group. Right into the group. And they all just started scattering. I could see the animal whipping its neck. Yeah, it's like fast. And I thought if it even saw us moving in the car, that it would crash through the windshield. So I told Bob, don't move at all.
Ever since their first encounter, Bill and Bob Clark have been monitoring the bay, and they claim 8 different sightings between 1985 and 1987, including an astonishing run-in with a young serpent.
And the last time we saw it was the time when we saw the baby with it. All of a sudden, this little black head sticks up out of the water, just tilts its head sideways, opens up its mouth, and it started growling at us. I could tell it was looking straight at us. And it was like a growl and a hiss, because it was more like a
After these dramatic encounters, they saw nothing more for 17 years. Then in January of 2004, they got a new video camera. And while scanning the bay near Alcatraz, they shot this footage of what they think is a mega serpent thrashing about in the distance. They sent their video to Dr. Bousfield.
The movie sequence shows this animal moving steadily from right to left for several minutes at a fair speed. Sea snakes don't occur in this part of the world, and they're far too small. Birds are far too small to fit this image as well. So imperfect as this video camera result is, by a process of elimination, the probability is high that indeed this is a Cadborosaurus-like animal.
We asked forensic video specialist Grant Fredericks to take a look at the Clark's Cadborosaurus. It was shot on a long lens without a tripod, so he minimizes the camera shake by giving each frame a firm point of reference. Once the image is stabilized, the large serpentine animal that Dr. Bousfield and the Clarks believed to have seen becomes more clearly defined. The alleged serpent is actually several smaller objects moving in formation.
They're not connected. These are separate individual objects that are a different size, a different shape, and that are not moving in unison. They're moving apart from each other.
Something in the foreground of the video gives a clue as to what kind of objects they are.
My common sense tells me that it acts like a bird, it flies like a bird, feeds like a bird, is probably a bird.
But Bill and Bob Clark are undeterred. They know what they saw and hope they get to see it again.
My instruction to the jury would be, use your common sense.
Three smaller.
It's mostly the shape of the head.
Don't take somebody who is passionate
sea serpent
about their evidence.
The animal whipping its nuts like fast.
Look at perhaps other explanations.
An otter, for example, or a beaver. We don't have 12-foot beavers in Okanagan Lake or 12-foot otters.
Until a carcass is discovered, the debate over lake and sea monsters will rage on. Yet the absence of hard evidence doesn't diminish the appeal of these monsters. Whether they truly live in the depths of our oceans and lakes, or simply in the unfathomable depths of the human imagination.
Lake monsters are useful to tell us something about what people's hopes and dreams are.
Not allowing the possibility of a biological life form living in this lake and just shutting the door, and it's a very sad indictment of where science is going. Where has the spirit of discovery and adventure gone?
No sea monsters have ever shown up. As soon as one shows up, I retract everything I've said so far.
I don't know what the answer is. All I know is that although it's extremely rare, the animal is there, if you can only find a way to catch them.
Primăvara asta, National Geographic Channel are tășgheaua plină.
Legendă sau adevăr? Venim cu argumente și chei noi pentru Enigmele Bibliei.
O organizație învăluită în suspiciune și zvon ne scapă câteva secrete. Procesul francmasonilor.
Vom face un top al animalelor desperiați de pe fiecare continent. 12 periculoși.
Pentru că toate poveștile de până acum trebuie puse cap la cap, vom petrece o noapte pe Titanic.
Visul american, V-Rod, cel mai rapid și mai modern motor al mărcii, trebuie să arate perfect și să ducă mai departe legenda Harley Davidson.
O nouă primăvară la National Geographic Channel.
fac ciocolata Milka atât de fină?
Hai, prietene! Cu cât laptele ajunge mai repede, cu atât ciocolata este mai fină!
E atât de fină pentru că se face aici, la înălțime, unde e liniște și pace. Lapte proaspăt din Alpi și o extra porție de pasiune. De aceea ciocolata Milka e atât de fină.
Super călătorie!
Super fină!
În lumea Heidi, ciocolatierii noștri îmbină cu pasiune ciocolata cu creme bogate și foarte fine pentru a oferi bucuria unei game speciale. Heidi Creamy. Heidi, passion pour chocolat.
Știți ce e atât de nedrept? Când realizez că ieri toate ridurile acestea nici nu existau. De aceea folosesc cel mai avansat Revitalift din ultimii 10 ani. Noul Revitalift cu factor de protecție solară 15. Priviți ce poate face Revitalift în doar 2 săptămâni. Acțiune antirid cu proretinol Aforte, acțiune fermitate cu fibra elastil și factor de protecție solară. Este nedrept un astfel de avantaj? Este. Cel mai avansat Revitalift de la L'Oreal. Pentru că merit.
Ți-ai pus dolce?
Da, săptămâna trecută.
Și? Cum e să fii dolce?
Cum să-ți explic? Ce-ți place ție mai mult și mai mult pe lumea asta?
Prăjiturile, normal.
Imaginează-ți că ai putea să ai toate prăjiturile din lume, dar absolut toate. Toate culorile, toate gusturile, toate felurile. Și ai putea să le mănânci fără să pui un gram pe tine. Așa e dolce.
Cât costă?
4,64 euro pentru Dolce Variety. Instalare și 6 luni gratuite. Detalii la 930 și în magazinele Rom Telecom sau ale partenerilor. Dolce. Televiziune digitală totală.
Prostenal Perfect conține Perfect Complex. Perfect Complex ajută în cazuri de urinări dese și întrerupte datorate măririi prostatei.
Asul e la mine.
Prostenal Perfect. Un atu pentru prostată.
Mami știe că am nevoie de energie dimineața. De aceea îmi dă Nestle Chocapic.
Așa este, deoarece acum Nestle Chocapic conține cereale integrale. Cerealele integrale eliberează treptat energia, pentru ca cei mici să fie în formă toată dimineața și să-și păstreze energia până la prânz. Și același gust intens Nestle Chocapic, pe care cei mici îl adoră. Energia cerealelor integrale toată dimineața.
Te trezești mai ușor dacă te gândești la ceva savuros, dar la un premiu. Trimite prin SMS codul de pe cutia de musli Vitalis și poți câștiga o cameră foto sau una video sau marele premiu, o vacanță în Tenerife. Vitalis, atât de gustos, atât de hrănitor.
În Vinerea Mare, într-o singură familie, musulmani, creștini și evrei ne deschid ușa casei lor și ne primesc în lumea lor.
Să ierți nu e ușor.
Pentru mine e cel mai sfânt loc de pe pământ.
Ierusalim, locurile sfinte, de Paști pe National Geographic Channel.
Now on Snake Wranglers. Searching for a killer cure.
Bring the bag. You got one?
The world's most fearsome snakes bite with venom that can destroy in minutes. But locked in some of that venom are life-saving medical secrets. Snake Wrangler Jim Harrison wants the key. Through a tropical paradise.
Yeah, this smells like really bad.
He'll follow his nose.
Well, if you're me, you always get hurt.
Jim seeks the rarely studied fertile lands of St. Lucia. Venom from this deadly snake may save a life. And one day, the life it saves may be Jim's. To quench a thirst for thrills, you could become a cop, or perhaps a stuntman, or even an alligator wrestler. There's one man who's been all three. Jim Harrison is addicted to danger.
This is the one that's a little psychotic.
Nowadays, to nourish his appetite for adrenaline, Jim relies on his lifelong love of snakes.
When I first caught a snake when I was 6 years old, I had no interest in school, and my dad bought me some books about snakes. And by the time I was 12, I was reading on a college level in herpetology, and it became my passion, and from that moment on, I've always had snakes.
In his current occupation, Jim runs the Kentucky Reptile Zoo and provides anti-venom for some of the world's most deadly snakes.
That's a bluff strike. A regular day starts about 7 o'clock in the morning, averaging 600 to 1,000 extractions a week, and that's on top of cleaning, feeding, and doing everything else with snakes.
Jim also impresses a snake-fearing public with snake lectures.
That's where the snake can bite through the bottom of its mouth. You see where its fang is? I don't want to get my finger any closer than that or I won't have that finger anymore. Then I got to start counting with my toes, and I don't want to do that.
From the U.S. to Argentina, to French Guiana and Brazil, Jim's snake exploits have earned him a reputation.
In Brazil, they gave me the nickname Gato Diablo, or Devil Cat, because I've been clinically dead 4 times in my life, and I have 3 ex-wives. They think I only have 1 life left. I actually get along with all my ex-wives. They just think I live on the edge a little bit too much. Even when I was working as a police officer, I was working with snakes.
But for every rush, there are sometimes painful reminders.
When I was a police officer, I was run over by a car and I was struck in the leg and I had a bumper pass into my knee, so I had 4 knee surgeries. I was knifed in the back. I've had my knuckle broken while fighting a peeping Tom in a backyard. I almost lost this finger to a cobra bite. I lost the tip of this finger to a desert horn viper bite. Lost the tip of this finger to a Cape cobra bite. And I've had all my teeth knocked out. So I've been kind of rough on my body.
Despite all the external injuries, there's one potential health problem that Jim can't brush off: the risk of heart disease.
People in my family have had heart disease and high blood pressure. My dad has 14 brothers, and several of them have passed away from heart disease. My father's had open heart surgery.
Jim's family history with heart disease has inspired him to contribute to heart disease research. And he's found a way using his love of snakes. A treatment for heart disease may lie in certain snake venoms, particularly those of pit vipers.
This research will make it easy so that nobody will have to go through what I've gone through, or other people's families will go through the same thing, so we'll save lives.
The viper that Jim seeks is the most feared in the region. It's the feral lance, or lancehead. This deadly snake is found on the Caribbean island of St. Lucia.
So we're going to look at this snake because it's a large snake, produces a lot of venom, and may be of medical importance in that we can use it as an anticoagulant drug.
Venom from the feral lance contains certain proteins that may act as anticoagulants. Anticoagulants dissolve life-threatening blood clots associated with heart disease and stroke.
If we find any of these components in this particular lance-headed viper, it could be of medical importance for us in our research.
But finding the St. Lucia feral lance is an occupational hazard. The feral lance is one of the most feared snakes in the Americas, with good reason. Its venom, tapped correctly, may be able to help thousands. But in its raw form, it destroys muscle cells in a matter of minutes. Without antivenom, death can occur within hours.
The venom is potentially myotoxic and hemotoxic like the other lance-headed vipers. Myotoxic attacks the muscles. It starts breaking them down.
Unchecked, The anticoagulants in the lancehead's venom can also lead to fatal bleeding.
Hemotoxins attack the blood and start breaking down the clotting factors in the blood. Most people who die from snake bite die is from physiological shock or loss of blood.
But Jim and danger seem intertwined. He'll risk facing the deadly side of venom for the chance to find a medical breakthrough.
Your age, yeah, 40.
Finding the fertile lance is a cause in every way close to his heart. There's one logical spot to find the lance head of St. Lucia, and that's St. Lucia. It's an island located in the Eastern Caribbean chain. Only 27 miles long by 14 miles wide. An island not normally synonymous with snakes. But inhabitants quickly warn Jim of the risks.
But as I say, it's risky business. We in St. Lucia, when you hear snake, you know what I mean, you're talking about terror, you know, people are terrified by just the word snake. These snakes are dangerous. They could grow quite long, I think some 8 foot, 9 foot long.
This trip, Jim's got backup. Kristen Wiley. Kristen is completing her master's on timber rattlesnakes.
There he is.
She's Jim's partner at the zoo and girlfriend. And if all goes well on this trip, Kristen may become much more, though she doesn't know it yet.
Kind of have a surprise for her on this trip. I'm going to enter from the other side.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask her to marry me, and hopefully she'll say yes.
I don't think.
But first, Jim must catch his fertile lance. They head out on a windy road for 40 minutes to the rainforest.
Chicken!
Jim quickly learns to drive by horn.
It's more dangerous driving on these roads than it is catching snakes. I don't know who yields there.
Jim and Kristen meet their guide at the edge of the rainforest.
We're going to see a lot of snakes today?
Yeah.
At least 5, right?
Yeah.
Or 4.5?
Yeah, it could be plenty snakes.
Okay, well, let's go.
Randall Marius works for the Fish and Wildlife Service and assures them they'll find snakes. Randall believes the fertile lances live along stream beds that run through the verdant terrain. The only access is by boat. Before long, they find a snake.
Snake!
A boa that's almost as beaten up as Jim.
This is the first snake of the day. This is a boa, it's a St. Lucia boa. This one's in not very good health. It's missing one eye, and it's also emaciated. It doesn't look like it's gotten a meal in a long time.
This boa has an old injury here on her side. It almost seems like something took a bite out of her. It's healed up, but it really feels pretty rough there, so maybe that's causing her some problems too. It's hard to say.
Boas are non-venomous, but have adapted a lethal trait. They hold their prey in their jaws, coil their bodies around the immobilized animal, and constrict. They squeeze their prey's ribcage to stop blood flow, causing sudden death. Sometimes the pressure is enough to break an animal's back. Up ahead, Jim sees something move in the water.
Boa! Not a live one either. Yeah, this smells like really bad. It smells like it is decaying flesh, but it looks like she had peritonitis, and because there's a baby right here, there's an egg, a formed egg right in here. That's what this is right here. It's stuck, and she can't get it out. So what it does is it goes bad, and she dies. It's real disappointing to find dead snakes instead of live snakes, but Part of nature and part of snake hunting is that things die and sometimes you don't find anything. So we're going to keep trying to find something though. That's what I call a floater.
St. Lucian boas are federally protected.
Not too happy to see me though.
Jim and Kristen are among the few to see them in their natural habitat. But the fertile lance still eludes them. Coming up, the search for the fertile lance adds one more injury to Jim's already battered body.
How do snakes survive in winter? The answer when Snake Wranglers returns.
Oui. Ah, il y a une empreinte. Allez, allez, recommence. Allez.
Ai adunat în calculatorul tău o groază de fotografii și mereu te gândești.
Oare cum să le prindeți mai ieftin?
Uite, Flamingo îți dă soluția. Imprimantă multifuncțională HP Photosmart G4180 cu cititor pentru 11 carduri de memorie și ecran LCD la cel mai mic preț, 429 de lei. Cadou, un pachet foto.
Nou, gumă de mestecat Mentos.
Tabu, cea mai curajoasă revistă de femei. În aprilie, Ana Ularu se alătură Tabu în lupta împotriva încălzirii globale, într-un pictorial fresh. Citește despre Ana.
Climate change is something that concerns every one of us. I have a special responsibility as head of an energy company. That's why we at Vattenfall come together with National Geographic to set up this competition. It's about young people coming up with ideas for a sustainable future. First prize is a fantastic trip to Washington, D.C., the heart of National Geographic. Go to the website and log on. This is your chance to combat climate change.
How do snakes survive in winter? Snakes are ectothermic. Unlike mammals who regulate their temperature internally, a snake's body temperature is controlled by the temperature of the air and the ground. That's why you'll often find snakes basking in sunny spots or lying on warm roads at night. To survive in winter, some snakes hibernate in dens and underground, relying on body fat which they've stored up during the warmer months.
Jim and Kristen resume their quest for the fertile lance.
Snake! Oh, that's a pretty one too.
It's another boa.
It looks like another female. This one looks healthy though today. This one's got a couple old battle scars, but it's a pretty snake. They can grow up to about 10 feet. we need to get moving and see if we can find some more snakes. There's lots of them moving around. So Kristen just said she saw another one.
Another boa.
Boas are adaptable. They are found near and under logs, in lowland grasses, and in the treetops.
Oh, you don't like that, do you? God, they have beautiful eyes. This is a really skinny one. She's not doing real well, so we won't handle her for too long.
Although Jim and Kristen are having a hard time finding the island's fer-de-lance, Jim has searched on the mainland and knows firsthand how prolific they can be. In Costa Rica alone, the mainland fer-de-lance is responsible for several hundred bites each year. It seeks shelter and waits for prey under leaf litter. Their advanced camouflage in this habitat has an additional consequence. Farm workers often tread on it with deadly results. Although the St. Lucia fer-de-lance is harder to find, it produces a unique venom that may hold a medical miracle. To find out, Jim first needs to catch one.
Snake hunting is not an exact science, so we don't always find what we're looking for. We've found some boas already. We're going to keep looking for the fer-de-lance. It's kind of a quest thing, and that's part of the challenge, so life's a little more exciting when there's something you're looking for over the next hill.
Some hills you look over, others you fall down.
I kissed a rock. I went under the thing and the current smashed my face into a rock. It probably improved my looks a little bit. One of the hazards, yeah, whenever you're out doing stuff, you can get hurt.
Typical. That's it.
I wasn't going after a snake, I was just trying to get across to the river and to go underneath a tree.
With time running out, Jim changes tactics. He'll now only hunt after dusk.
I decided to start looking for the snakes at night and taking my own intuition of what the snakes are like.
He also moves to the coast and hires a new guide, Thomas. Thomas finds an eel. It's not the fer-de-lance, but it makes a good meal. Thomas is known as the snake doctor in the region.
Usually when people have snake bite, we are the one who takes care of the victims who have been bitten by the snakes, you know. That's why we call it the snake doctor.
But at night, everything looks like a snake. Shadows, leaves, logs, even jumping frogs.
Here we have a little tiny frog, which is good food for baby bothrops or baby lancehead vipers. So hopefully now we'll find the snakes. Since their food is out, hopefully the snakes will be out too.
Despite best efforts, Jim and Kristen are getting restless. And Jim's still waiting for the right moment to propose to Kristen. But he's so out of luck. Perhaps neither will happen.
We've been out attempting to collect fer-de-lances at night and haven't had any luck. We're going to reevaluate our plans on how to find them and try something different tomorrow.
The heart disease that has raged through Jim's family has given him a sense of urgency, unlike any of his past snake adventures. And Jim has evidence he might be on the right track. Other snake venoms have been proven viable in medical research. Ancrod, a compound that's extracted from the venom of the Malayan pit viper, is already being used to increase blood flow in stroke patients. Some sea snakes are being studied for their potential to target brain receptors involved in learning and memory, a hope for Alzheimer's patients. And the unique venom from the St. Lucia fer-de-lance could be the next medical miracle. It's their last field day. Jim and Kristen head out again at dusk.
We're changing strategies. We've tried hunting during the daytime when the heat and in the rainforest areas, but we feel like they've been flooded out. That's why we found more boas than anything else. I am persistent, so hopefully we'll come up with something.
They split up,
Fortunately, they're in earshot.
Kristen, bring the bag.
You got one?
Their persistence has paid off. Jim spots a fer de lance.
Great.
Hello. You got a fer de lance.
The fer de lance can strike almost its full body length, about 3 feet.
Watch it, don't get too excited.
It often surprises its victims with an unusual move.
Okay, gotta make sure we get it in the bag. So let's...
The snake is known to strike straight up. Vipers are one of the most effective killers. Not only can they strike with lightning speed, but they can rotate their fangs to land and inject a venomous bite on impact.
Yep. After 1 week of hunting snakes and starting out by going through the rainforest and checking out plantations and walking through the rain and the creeks and getting a broken nose and getting all tired and exhausted, we finally found a snake. When I was looking around, it actually was sitting out. It looked like it was in a hunting posture, waiting for food to come by. As I was hooking the snake out, it struck forward. And they strike a good distance for their length, about 2/3 of their body. So that's one of the things that makes them extremely dangerous. But once we got him in the bag, he calmed down a lot. It's for people who don't have fingers.
But catching the snake is not the end of the game for Jim. Jim entices the snake into a restraining tube, protecting the snake from Jim and Jim from the snake.
When getting the snake out of the bucket, especially after it being captured, it's like a person having a bad hair day. The animal's going to be in a bad mood, so when it comes out, it could be flying all over the place and biting into everything that moves.
Jim will take the venom back to Kentucky to test for proteins that may one day advance medicine.
That's all?
We're going to now take some tissue off of the snake by taking a small piece of the scale off its belly. This little piece of scale, amazingly, will give us a lot of information about the DNA of the snake.
Okay.
It's been long overdue. A lot of tramping through woods, a broken nose, some bruised shins, and lots of bug bites.
Jim's intuition has paid off. It's led him to the snake. And now he's ready to trust it on a more personal matter. A surprise for Kristen.
Kristen and I met as she came as an intern to the zoo. And shortly after she was there, we started dating and I fell in love with her. And actually, she's been put through a lot and stuck with me and everything. So I figured this would be a good time to ask you to marry me.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Yeah. I figured this way I can't back out. If I'm on camera, I can't back out. So you got proof that I actually asked you. So.
Of course I'm.
Just don't cry. You'll make me feel bad. So.
In matters of the heart, Jim has won all round, not only with Kristen, but with the fer de lance venom that he will now analyze for anticoagulants to help fight heart disease. Most people think of death when they hear the word venom. Jim thinks of life. He's working towards saving lives, and maybe one day, his own.
Total sălbatic urmează pe National Geographic Channel.